Hey, it's Mark Cunningham at Grace Property Management. So oftentimes we get calls from prospective owner clients who own a rental property and they're considering hiring us to manage that rental property, and they're trying to contemplate and decide whether or not they should self-manage the property or should they hire a company like us to do it for them. And it's not a right or wrong. Professional property management is not for every owner client. Some owner clients are very successful in managing their rental property. So let me give you 3 suggestions to help you as a rental property owner decide whether or not you should self-manage your rental property versus turning it over to a third party. So consideration number one is the question you need to ask yourself as a potential landlord is, do I have the time to manage this rental property? When it goes vacant, do I have the time to get somebody in there quickly or go in there myself quickly and get it rent ready? Do I have the time to take the calls on the vacancy, show the property? Am I going to be available when my tenant calls at 3 a.m. because the water heater is leaking and there's water all over the floor? Because I better answer that call, because if I don't, I'm going to wake up the next morning to a big mess. Managing rental property does take some time, and there'll be long periods of time where nothing happens, and then all of a sudden, boom, big things happen. So you have to be available all the time if you're going to do a good job managing your rental property. That's consideration number one. Consideration number 2 is, do I have the temperament? Do I have the temperament to work with my tenant? Tenants are great. We love our tenants. Sometimes we can get frustrated with our tenants. Sometimes you rent a property to a tenant and it's a no pet property, and you drive by the property and there in the picture window is a little cute kitty cat sitting in the picture window. When you see that cute kitty cat sitting in the picture window, how are you going to react? What is your temperament? Do you get all upset and get angry and start yelling and screaming? Probably not a professional temperament to have. What are you going to do if the tenant calls and says, hey, I'm going to be late this month with my rent? Are you just going to say, okay, we'll pay when you can? Or are you going to get angry? Or are you going to make some arrangements and say, hey, here are your options? You need to make sure that you have a professional temperament with this, that you understand the laws, the rules, and the regulations in place, because things do happen with tenants. It's a management of people business, almost more than it's a management of property business. So as you're dealing with tenants, you need to make sure you're being fair, that you're being consistent, and you're setting proper expectations so that you're professional in your temperament with your tenants. And consideration number 3, do you have the knowledge? In the last 2 years in Colorado, we have seen more new rules, legislation, laws come into our industry impacting residential rentals than we probably have had in the last 25 years combined. We just have. Do you know those rules? Because it doesn't matter whether you are licensed to manage. If it's your own property, yes, you can manage it, but you still have to follow those rules. Rules that govern who you can rent to, the questions you can and cannot ask an applicant, doing the background screening, what things you can look at and what things you can't take into consideration. And if you get those things wrong, the penalties are very, very stiff. You have time frame laws that require you as a rental property owner to respond in a certain amount of hours if the tenant makes a repair request under certain situations. If a tenant moves out of a property, you only have a limited amount of time to return their security deposit, and you must give an itemized deductions, and you've got 30 days, and if you don't return the deposit within 30 days, or 60 if the lease says so, you can get fined up to 3 times the amount of the rent. There are dozens and dozens and dozens and hundreds of laws, little laws like that, that if you miss even one of them can be incredibly costly to you as a property management owner. So if you're going to manage it yourself, make sure you have that knowledge as well. Now, if you're interviewing a property management company, we will put a link in this video to this is what I believe is the most important question to ask your prospective property manager if you're considering hiring them rather than doing it yourself. Is there are 8 parts of the property management agreement, that's the document you as an owner would sign with the PM company to manage a property. 8 parts that can be really gotchas if you're not careful as a property owner. We'll put a link in there and explain exactly what those 8 parts of the property management agreement are. We encourage you to be cautious. There's a lot of great property management companies in Colorado and Denver, and there's some that aren't so great. How do you tell the difference? Well, one way to tell the difference is by paying attention to these 8 clauses in your property management agreement. Hey, if we can be a resource at Grace Property Management, we're happy to do so. We've been around since 1978, so we've seen a lot of property management companies come, a lot of property management companies go, worked with thousands and thousands of tenants and owners both. We're happy to be a resource. Jump on our website, rentgrace.com. I wish you success.